so this video is going to look at factoring one. So factoring. So we've been talking a lot about factoring and what we should be looking for first. So your first thing you're always going to look for is a common factor. So a common factor is when there is multiple. So an example of this would be like 3x squared minus 9x plus 6. So I'm looking at this, and this is in fact trinomial, but before I do anything with it, what I want to do is look to see if I have a common factor. So let's add this to be x cubed, x squared, and x, just for my example. So first of all, I see that 3 is common in all three terms, and I see that all three terms also have an x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my common factor as 3x, and x being my lowest x variable. And then really what I'm doing is I'm dividing each term by that value as my common factor. Inside the bracket is what's left over. So 3 divided by 3 gives you 1, and x cubed divided by x just leaves you with an x squared. Next, 9 divided by 3 is negative 3, and x squared divided by x just leaves you with an x. And next, I have 6 divided by 3, which leaves me with a 2, and the x's cancel or divide into each other to give you 1, so I just left. So here's my common factor. Next, I do want to check at this point, because inside the bracket I have that trinomial, I do want to factor that trinomial. This is a little out of sequence, but we will be talking a full lesson on how to factor trinomials, but I might as well do a quick one right now. So again, I've taken out my common factor. I'm now looking at this trinomial. In order to factor a trinomial, I'm going to do my product, which P stands for product, and sum chart to figure out what my multiples are. My product is always the coefficient of the first term divided by the last term. So in this case, it's 1 times 2, so it would just be 2. And my sum is always that middle numerical coefficient on the middle term, which is negative 3. So now I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to a positive 2 and add to a negative 3. So if I say negative 1 times negative 2, that in fact multiplies to a positive 2. And negative 1 plus negative 2, that in fact adds to a negative 3. So I can go one more step further here. I write down my common factor of 3x, and I now open two brackets, and I have x minus 1 and x minus 2 as my factors for that trinomial. So now it's fully factored. My next step is I'll just, again, practice one more basic trinomial. So this is just a simple trinomial, which we just saw above, but I'm just going to do one more example. So if I'm looking at x squared plus 3x minus 18 as my simple trinomial, first things first, I look, and I do not have a common factor. There is no numerical coefficient that is divisible by all of them other than 1, and there's not an x in all terms. So right away I go to my product and sum chart. Again, my product is the coefficient of the first times the coefficient of the last. So in this case, it's just negative 18. And then my sum is the coefficient of that middle term. So that is, in this case, 3. I'm now looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 18 and add to 3. I can go through many multiples here in order to find this, but once you've practiced a lot, you sort of get quick at it. So I'm going to say, well, 6 times negative 3 gives me negative 18, and 6 plus negative 3 gives me positive 3. So therefore, because this is a simple trinomial, I can open up both brackets, my variables in x, so I put that as the first term in each bracket, and now I have a positive 6 and negative 3. My last one here